nonprofit executive. For those of you who don't know, we've been running the nonprofit executive leadership roundtable for, I guess, 3 years or something like that. I'd have to look at a calendar. We used to do these, as I always say, in real time in a real room with real people, although we still have real people here. We're just not in a room together. I am actually away right. What's that? With bagels? Yes. Yeah, bagels, coffee. Beth Buckheiser, if she was here, would remind her how many bagels I owe her now because we haven't had a bagel together. So I had a cream cheese and jelly bagel a couple of weeks ago, and I took a picture and sent it to Beth just to, because she loves the cream cheese and jelly on a bagel like I do. Anyway, that's not why we're here. We're here to connect. We're here to network. I'm actually at a conference on networking for a group we run called the Networking Group. So I'm going to learn more about networking and bring it back to you all. I usually go around the room, the virtual room, and have everybody introduce themselves. I'm going to let Christine make that decision if that's going to happen, because I am going to slip away. Ceci is here. She's got her picture. She's my assistant. She's got my picture on the screen there. So if you need anything technical, you can just work with her. It says Tommy DiMisa, although it isn't. Really, I'm going to get out of the way, Christine, and let you take it from here. Judy, I'm thrilled you're here. I'm excited, and I'm so glad we're recording, because as I told you in the green room, I hate that I'm missing, but I got to do it. Christine Deska, take it away.
Thanks, Tommy. Good morning, everybody. You guys, this is the least I can do for my partner, Tommy. Let me tell you, the number of times I have to run late because of dropping my babies off or literally having babies, and Tommy takes over for months at a time. This is the least I can do. So Tommy, enjoy your conference. And thanks everybody for making the time on this supposedly spring day. I actually brought out this coffee mug for today because this is how it feels. Today, springtime. Okay. But we're so excited. As you all know, we had Melissa Greenberger on previously sometime last year, and she has moved on. And we're all still very, very upset about that, but also very happy that she's still part of the Roundtable family. But today we're able to bring the new face of Pro Bono Partnership to you all. So I thought, since we have a smaller group, why don't we go around and just say your name, organization, and then maybe one thing you hope to learn today during the session, if you have it top of mind. If not, and then we'll jump in and we'll do a conversational Q&A with Judy. And I'm just so excited for all of the learnings that we'll all have. So let's see. So why don't we start with, how about you, Roberta? Good morning.
Good morning, all. I have to say I am here, but I'm a little bleary-eyed. Got home very late last night from a fabulous trip. And so my mind is still in Hawaii. But for anybody who hasn't been, you need to go. It is just heaven. So I just will say that. I am Roberta Rosenberg, founder of Destination Accessible. We are an organization who strives to enrich the quality of life for people with mobility challenges by providing free firsthand accessibility information of places people go for fun: museums, theaters, parks, restaurants, any other popular places. Our goal, our goal is to not tell anyone where to go, but simply let them know before they go exactly what they are going to find when we get there. And so now that people are out and about again, we're trying to get out to places we have been before. Unfortunately, a lot of places have closed down, so we have to get them off our website. And if anybody has any places that they really would like us to go and visit, please, I'll put my contact information, let us know. We're always looking for interesting places. And there are so many on Long Island that are accessible. And we do have lots of choices on Long Island so that you can go to some place that is accessible as opposed to some place that is not as accessible.
Great, thank you, Roberta. And is there anything in particular you wanted to learn today from Judy?
I am always delighted to be here and never know, but I always go away with, a myriad of things. I need everything. And so I'm happy to hear what anybody has to offer.
Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, we don't know what we don't know, right? I always feel the same way after these sessions. Okay, how about you, Joe Salamoni?
Joe Salamoni, founder of and executive director of Long Island Coalition Against Bullying. I went on a little longer of a tirade before, so I'm going to leave it at that. I don't have anything specific I'm really looking to learn. I come away with every experience knowing that I'm going to learn something. So I just always keep an open mind to walking away with whatever I walk away with.
Very good. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw you at the NRH event last
Yes.
week. It's nice to see you again.
Same here.
Okay, how about Mindy?
Hi, good morning. I'm Mindy Lund, and I work with Judy Siegel and formerly worked with Melissa Greenberger at Pro Bono Partnership, and I handle our marketing and communications. And unrelated to the actual topic, I think this is a great group with a lot of information and knowledge. And so I would be interested in anyone who has some advice on hybrid events. If you have any vendors that you've used that you really like, I would love to know about them. I'll put my email in the chat. That would be great. And then I wanted to let you all know that we have a bunch of nonprofit webinars coming up from anywhere from common legal issues to bylaws to privacy and HIPAA information. So that's all on our website, and I will put a link in the chat on that for that too, and where you can find those.
Great, thank you, Mindy.
Thanks.
Frank, good morning, partner.
Hey, partner, how are you? I'm Frank Orzo. I am the partner of Christine Deska, and we're co-founders of nonprofit sector strategies.
Coffee,
And
Frank.
right, thank you. And our real main focus, in addition to strategic strategic planning, is Bell's Board, our nonprofit board portal. And we're having great success with that. I think we have the right product for the right market at the right price. And we've been recently rated best value for board portals in this space by Capterra. So we're excited about what we're doing. And I'm excited to have Christina as my business partner.
Thanks. Frank is so easy to work with. I got so lucky, you guys. Okay, how about Vicky? Good morning. Nice to see you.
Hi, Christine. Good morning. How are you? How is everybody? Roberta, sounds like you had a great vacation. I was looking into vacations myself yesterday, and I took my dog in for dental surgery this morning. I was looking into cruises. So now I think I'll just get like a toy rowboat or something and scratch the vacation. So, but she'll have great teeth. Anyway, it's always great to be here. Vicky Elner, I have extensive experience in the not-for-profit arena. I'm the founder of an organization that I ran for about 20 years, Senior Umbrella Network of Brooklyn, which was dedicated to being a voice for senior issues in the Brooklyn area, as well as metropolitan New York. It's been on hiatus since 2018. Right now, I'm sitting on the board of directors, excuse me, for a New York Statewide Senior Action Council, which is a grassroots advocacy organization celebrating its 50th year this year, actually. They are quite admirable. They have 3 hotlines that they run, one a patient rights line, and they do a lot. Talk about the voice for seniors. They do it statewide. They have chapters, throughout the region. I'm working with them right now to establish a Long Island chapter, which is a large give and get. Let me put it that way. So I'm always looking for advice relevant to that if looking for what I would need. I did a short stint recently with Great Panthers, which ended in December. So I am looking for a gig out there. So with my background, have experienced day-to-day operations, fundraising, board development, programming, collaboration, etc. I might be a key person either on an ad hoc or a broader basis. Keep that in mind. I'd appreciate it. And what I'm doing also that actually will pay for the vet today is I'm a consultant for Ronald Vitula and Associates. I'm an outreach and government affairs consultant. So the other thing is that we're always looking to partner with different collaborators for programs. We actually worked with Book Fairies on a program last year with an author. So if there's something out there that we can connect on, holler. Thanks, sir. Thanks.
Vicky. I heard that session with Ron and that author. That was incredible. Keep up the good work. All right, Terry, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see everyone. Tommy, hope you're having a great time in Tampa. Roberta, I just got back from Hawaii. I was there for a wedding. My nephew got married in Kauai, so I know what you're talking about. It's absolute paradise. Absolute, absolute. Go back there in a minute. So Terry Magro. I am the co-founder with my husband Paul of the Michael Magro Foundation, which was incorporated as a 501c3 in 2005. And our mission is to help families of children diagnosed with cancer. So how we find these families is through social workers, case managers, child life specialists, pediatric oncologists. And once they identify a family that has needs, then they bring them to us. And the way we help them is by paying a lot of their household bills, their medical expenses. We pay direct to the vendor. So it kind of takes it right off their plate. We do send checks sometimes to families if the social worker asks, but mostly we pay out directly. So last year we paid, excuse me, $290,000 in bills to families all over the United States, actually. So it was a great year for us. We have a program at NYU Cancer Center for Kids on Long Island. That's a school reentry program, and that's about a $30,000 program that we run totally, where we bring together the school and the clinic and the families, and there is no cost to anyone. We underwrite the entire thing. So the school doesn't pay for the education that the clinic is giving and vice versa. So it's been a very, very successful program that's been around since 2008. So thank you so much, Tommy. I look forward to our podcast. I know I have to reconnect with everybody, Christine, probably you, to get some of those details, but I'm looking very much forward to it. So thank you. And it's great to see so many familiar faces this morning. Terry Magro, the Michael Magro Foundation.
Thank you, Terry. I didn't realize all that you all did. It's so great to hear. I have a contact for you at Columbia, actually. I just jotted it down, so I'll circle back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Amy, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Amy Fleischer. I am the Development Officer at Long Island Select Healthcare. We are a federally qualified health center. We currently, because of COVID, have 3 locations in Hop Hog, Riverhead, and Central Islip. And we treat the underserved. So a federally qualified health center, they're sanctioned to treat the underserved, whether that's underserved medically or what have you. So we treat the IDD population. We were founded by Free, DDI, and UCP. So we have the IDD population. We homeless, undocumented, anyone that needs health care, people that don't have insurance. We have 19 specialties. So no one should go without health care. What our CEO, one of his things that he says is that healthcare should not be determined by your zip code. You know, that's really it. We are having a 9 and Dine golf outing May 17th, and most of our golfing is sold out, but we're having a fun little barbecue dinner, and I'll put the link in the chat. But great to be here as always, and I just want to get back in person again.
I know. Thanks, Amy. Nice to see you. And I just saw my partner write down that golf date. Melissa, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, everybody. It's always nice to be with this group to start my morning. Melissa Greenberger. I am previously with Pro Bono Partnership, so I have the privilege and honor of working with both Judy and Mindy. I am now a program officer at the Long Island Community Foundation, which is a community foundation. So we provide grants and funding to nonprofits across Long Island. We have several different priority and issue areas that we are dedicated to working on. You can find everything on our website. We have a very transparent process. It's a competitive grant making process. And our next set of proposals are due on April 4th. I'll put my info in the chat in case anybody has any questions, but I'm happy to be here and learn with all of you. So thanks.
We're so glad you're still part of our family. Now we have even more expertise.
We brought everything, right?
Yeah,
more to the table, which is great.
It's wonderful. We'll have to have you speak from that perspective soon.
We'll talk about it. It's all good.
We'll talk about it. You're probably a little busy right now. All right, Jen, good morning. Nice to see you. We go way back.
We do. When we were little baby anti-hunger outreach people.
That's right.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, Christine. Wow. That was, I just got hit with like almost like a, yeah. So yeah, I've had really what I can only call is the privilege of knowing Christine Duska for the better part of 10 years now or something. When we were partners, when she was with AARP and I was with the Health and Welfare Council of Long Island on an anti-hunger initiative. It was a really good program. We had a lot of fun and we helped a lot of people, and it was a new model program. So we also did things like showed up places and didn't have internet, and we had to figure it out together, and it was cool. And just speaks to Christine's dedication to the nonprofit community on Long Island, for sure. I can vouch for that personally. So my name is Jen. I am the Associate Director at LI Against Domestic Violence, and we are, as our name implies, serving survivors of domestic violence for over 45 years. We, in the last couple of years, have also become a certified rape crisis sexual assault center. So you're going to be seeing more of that as we go into the next couple of years. Well, not couple of years, as in pressing forward, you're going to see us talk more and more of that as we get our infrastructure set up and our staff trained in that as well. We have our, what I always say to folks too is people always, if I get one question, I was like, how do I help? How do I help? How do I help somebody who's been in this scenario? And I always say, get thee to a hotline. That is the best thing. Our hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is only answered by our trained and certified domestic violence counselor staff. All through COVID, all through the lockdown, that phone never went unanswered. Okay, regardless of what certain offenders tried to tell their victims. This is what I always say: we are here, we believe you, and you are not alone.
Powerful words. Thanks, Jen. Oh, it's so good to see you. It has been. I also was flooded with images of those good old days. It was fun work that we did. Eileen, good morning. I don't know if you're there. You're probably stocking shelves, organizing books, but you are there.
I am here. I'm sorry. I'm on the move. It's a
You're
crazy
always
day
on the
today.
move.
I'm on the move. Eileen Minogue. I'm the executive director for the Book Fairies. Hi, everyone. So happy to see so many good faces and friends, Melissa and Terry. Terry, I was at Sib's place yesterday, and you do amazing work. They told me that you're going to be providing some support to them as well. So keep up the great work. We collect and source books for children in under-resourced communities here on Long Island in New York City, and trying to provide equitable opportunities so kids can learn, grow, and thrive. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, over 3.2 million books distributed, and we're going to be recognizing throughout our month of May, Amy Zizlansky, who many of you know, has our founder and has done a tremendous job, and on whose shoulders we all stand here at the Book Fairies. So lots of good stuff happening with us. So if you have books to donate or corporations that you know that want to volunteer, we provide corporate volunteer opportunities as well. Thank you for having me. I'm going to be on the move, so I'm going to have no video.
That's okay, Eileen. Thank you for joining us. I also want to give a shout out to Eileen for helping us connect for next month's roundtable, which will be on CRMs. Okay, one of our favorite topics, relationship management platforms and how to actually use them to make your organization more efficient and effective. So Eileen, thank you for bringing us yourself and also a subject matter expert from Salesforce. Is that right? Is that who we're using? Yep. Awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. So
yeah, thank you for having me.
Wanted to hear, we asked you all what you wanted to hear about. We have these topics slotted in, and CRM and using it effectively was one of the top ones. So we're excited about that. All right. So without further ado, we have Judy with us. Judy looking so nice up there in my top left with her blurred background, the most professional looking of, I think, the entire group here. No offense to anybody else. I was complaining to Frank. I said, I'm driving home in this yucky weather, and my hair just kept getting bigger and bigger. Try to contain it.
That's my dream. That's my dream in life.
A lot of hair for me, not so much for my partner. We balance each other out. All right. So Judy is a senior staff attorney at Pro Bono Partnership. So for Judy, working at Pro Bono Partnership allows her to combine many of her loves, the law, teaching, working with nonprofits on a daily basis. After 25 plus years working in the public and private sector, Judy decided that working with nonprofits in a professional capacity was how she wanted to spend her time and where her legal skills would be best utilized. A lifetime of volunteer activity and board service shaped this decision and the practical advice she now offers her nonprofit clients. As a senior staff attorney at Pro Bono Partnership, Judy provides a wide variety of legal services to nonprofits in New York and Connecticut. In addition to incorporating nonprofits and helping them obtain their 501c3 status, she provides direct legal service and guidance on nonprofit tax-exempt law, charitable solicitation, fundraising, corporate governance, contract matters, and capacity building. Judy is a trusted counselor and advisor to clients on a variety of business legal needs, including intellectual property, employment law, real estate, lending and finance, mergers and collaboration, and volunteer activity. She also lectures frequently on topics relevant to nonprofit executives and board members, including the New York State Not-for-Profit Corporation Law, 6 Strategies to a Better Board, Effective and Efficient Boards and Board Meetings, Top 10 Legal Issues Facing Nonprofits, and Lobbying and Political Activity for Nonprofits as well. Judy's workshops are perennial favorites. I'm not surprised. Those are great topics, Judy, with lessons and practical tips that are easy to implement. Prior to Pro Bono Partnership, Judy worked in private practice at Weil, Gottschall, and Manges. Oh, that's a long one, as well as Kitty and Gershfeld. She also served as the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Westchester Regional Office of the New York State Attorney General's Office. Judy graduated cum laude from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania and magna cum laude from Boston University School of Law. She has also served on various boards and grants committees. She's also received numerous awards and recognition for her work. Most recently, she was honored by Spark Inc., a Westchester County nonprofit that offers recreational arts, athletics, and wellness programs for members of the Westchester County Special Needs Community, and Tales of Hope Foundation, a nonprofit in the tri-state area that, among other things, supports working and retired military and police dogs and the officers and soldiers they serve with. Judy often claims she has the world's most coveted lawyer job because she gets to see the best in people each and every day. Well, let me tell you, this bio really represents what I know of Judy so far. We've met recently. We were in a breakout room at the Nonprofit Resource Hub a couple weeks ago. And when we were talking about bringing this topic back, because we know there's so much information that nonprofits are eager to get a hold of and also connect with Pro Bono Partnership. It was just so wonderful that she was available to be with us today and kind of introduce her to the Roundtable family now that Melissa has moved on to a foundation. So Judy, welcome. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's so exciting to be back on Long Island. I actually sort of led the charge on Long Island about 7 years ago before we even had an office space. I was like the wandering Jew. There's not a diner on Nassau and Suffolk that I don't think I had a meeting at. And it actually alarms my husband sometimes when we're driving. I'm like, oh, the Curl Place Diner, I love their sandwiches. Or like we're driving, I'm like, oh, Jill Dore's shoes, good place to stop. So now I have a reason to be back on Long Island. Although, as Melissa will tell you, for over a year when I would go out to work with her on Long Island, it either rained, snowed, or fogged every single time I came to Long Island.
And if I could just jump in for a moment, Judy, you're not here physically, but it's pouring here today. So just put that out there for you.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
That's a true outreach person that knows all of those locations, all the places you go to meet people who you're working with and be on the ground, right?
Yeah, and I'm excited to be at the Imagine Awards next month. I haven't been in a couple of years and now it's live and I get to see people again. It's gonna be great.
Oh my gosh, me too. What an amazing event. If anyone has not heard of or been to the Imagine Awards, reach out to me or Tommy to find out. It's just such an incredibly inspiring evening. So Judy, okay, I read that bio, but that doesn't really do you justice because I heard all of the knowledge that you were sharing at the NRH meeting. So fill in what I might have missed. How did you make your way to Pro Bono Partnership and what's your day-to-day like?
Well, I think you highlighted how I made it professionally. I started at Weil Gottschall. I was a bankruptcy lawyer. Weil Gottschall is a huge international law firm, actually really well known for bankruptcy law. And I'm old enough that I was there in the early 90s. So my probably legal claim to fame is that I wrote the pleadings to bankruptcy Judge Liflin that allowed the Macy's Day Parade and fireworks to get approved and go forward. So you're welcome. Then, oh, here's another fun fact. When I left Weil Gotshal, I went to Tender Greenblatt, which is now Blank Rome. So it's a smaller firm. It's only national, not international. I got plucked out of bankruptcy and I did a special project in the corporate department for a little over a year where I launched MSNBC. I did all the tri-party negotiations between the cable operators, the local NBC-owned stations, and MSNBC. So that was terrific fun. It was really great work. And then I split my time between bankruptcy and corporate and ultimately landed in corporate because I thought I would be an even better lawyer if I had more general corporate experience and mergers and acquisition experience, although it's not really where my heart lies. Like I'm much more a litigation courtroom kind of girl. Then I got asked to run the AG's office. So I had Westchester, Orange, Rockland, and Putnam County under me. I was 33 years old. I had 20 people who worked for me. I was very pregnant and it was quite the ride, but it was great. It was wonderful working in government, another really good perspective. I did a trial at 8.5 months pregnant. It was horrific. I was out to here. It was one of those surprising March days when it was 90 degrees. I had no maternity clothes. I was a horror show in that courtroom, but it was a great job. Then I got fired because new AG. And I started working for a bankruptcy trustee who was appointed by the Justice Department. It was wonderful. The best part was I got to set my own court schedule most of the time, which was great for a working mother. I was technically part-time, but if you know me, that whole part-time thing doesn't really work. I part-time at Pro Bono Partnership, and I'm always on the phone with my clients on Fridays when I don't work. And then about 8 years ago, I got intellectually bored. I knew I still wanted to be a lawyer because I love being a lawyer, but I needed a new area to practice in, and I loved my work with nonprofits. So I sent a letter and my resume to a bunch of friends and said, have at it. Tell me what you think I should do. And someone forwarded my resume to Pro Bono Partnership. I had my first interview with my boss, Maurice Siegel, for those of you who know him, while I was literally standing in the produce department at ShopRite buying stuff for Shabbat dinner. And then 2 weeks later, I accepted my offer and started the next Monday. So there you have it. And I live in Westchester with my husband. We've been married almost 30 years, which is hard to believe because I'm not that old. We have two sons, a 23, who works in Chicago for United Airlines, and a 21-year-old who, fingers crossed, is going to graduate from college in another 7 weeks. It's been a long haul with that one. And I have a golden retriever who's the love of my life because I'm the most wonderful person on this earth. So Swish is my true love.
Oh, I was going to say you've got a wonderful family, but the dog is the love of your life. Yeah.
So in terms of typical day at Pro Bono Partnership, there really isn't. My life is client driven, right? So there are certain things that show up on my calendar every week. Every Monday, we have a placement meeting. For those of you who don't know Pro Bono Partnership, but I think you all do, we work with volunteer lawyers, everything from solo practitioners to the heads of international law firms and in-house lawyers at corporations like Nature's Bounty, IBM, Pepsi, GE, Synchrony. And they volunteer in their area of expertise. So we match them with projects. And you have to have, in order to volunteer with us, you can only volunteer in your sphere of expertise. But then we do a lot of the legal work ourselves. I mean, I probably on any given day spend a fair amount of my time reviewing other lawyers' work, drafting contracts, governance documents, releases, contracts. You know, I'm sort of doing employment law, a little intellectual property law. I sort of do it all. For those of you who haven't worked with us, anytime there's a new matter, we have an intro call with the volunteer lawyer, the Pro Bono Partnership attorney, and the client. And that's both introductory, but also as your PBP lawyer, we know far more about what's going on with you. And we also have a better sense of things that are significant to the project than you might coming from the nonprofit itself. So we have an introductory meeting, we discuss things. So I probably do 8 of those a week, maybe 12, depends on how crazy my week is. And then I spend a lot of my day answering questions and just discussing things with my clients. Like I really am a counselor. Like when they call lawyers counselors, that's where it's at for me. So either by email or on the phone. And I actually have to say for all my clients, I'm like their mother, their therapist, their lawyer, their friend. How you allocate that bundle depends on the client and the given day. It's up to you to decide. But I'm just sort of there for my clients all the time, every day. And I'm inspired by all the work you do all the time. Like it really, I'm not kidding when I say best lawyer job ever. I see people who should be crushed, right? I mean, they should be crushed by what life has handed them. And instead they just rise up from the ashes and like make the world better. And I work with volunteer lawyers who could be walking out the door at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And instead they're doing documents at midnight to help our clients. So really, I see all the good every day. So the world's kind of sucky and I get to see the best part of it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Judy. And you're right, you do talk fast and I love it.
I'm sorry.
So
Court
much.
reporters hate me.
She told me, I talk fast, we're going to cover everything. And I said, I like it. And I think most of us on this call, I don't know if I'm technically a New Yorker yet, having been here since 2001, but we all talk a little fast. We're used to this, right? Everybody good with this pace? So we've talked a lot in the past about identifying risk and how nonprofits should think about risk, because let's face it, the compliance demands on nonprofits right now are quite difficult to dot every I and cross every T. And I think we all are afraid if we ask a lawyer a question, what will the answer be? It depends. And then we find out we're not doing a million different little things. So how do you approach risk discussions with the nonprofits you work with?
Well, sort of in two ways, Christine. So here's the thing. As a lawyer or as your lawyer, I have to tell you that it's your obligation to be 100% compliant, right? That is the answer you're going to get from every lawyer. But pretty much every lawyer I know is not naive. And I know that not every nonprofit is perfect, nor does it do everything 100% right 100% of the time, right? It's just life. And we know you're working harder and harder with fewer and fewer resources, and time being one of those resources. So for me, it's a matter of risk reward and balancing it. So here are two examples to show you the contrast. Okay, in New York, when you amend your foundational governance documents, so your bylaws or your certificate of incorporation, you are legally obligated to provide those new documents to the Charities Bureau of the New York State Attorney General's office within 30 days. Now, probably the vast bulk of my clients don't even know that. Why? Because they tune me out somewhere in that discussion, but that is the case. 30 days, file it on a form CHAR 410A. Do they do that? Of course not. I consider myself lucky if my clients remember to attach their new governance documents on their annual filing, their CHAR 500. So is there a risk that you're going to get in trouble with the AG's office? Yeah, you might. Is it a huge risk? No. When it comes to something like this, the AG's office is all about compliance, not punishment. I'm saying that as me, not as my capacity as the AG's office. Maybe you're going to get fined, but it's probably unlikely. So the risk of not quite doing it technically correct, not huge. The reward, well, it's one less piece of paper you have to remember to file. So risk reward on that one, you balance it out, probably not huge. But again, as your lawyer, I would tell you, you have to do it. Now, contrast that with a situation like this. You're my client, you call me up and you say, hey, Jude, we've got this great fundraising opportunity. We can open a cafe and we're going to make like 22% of our revenue running this cafe. Isn't that great? My first reaction is, yeah, I'm all for my nonprofits making money. Makes me happy when money comes in the door. But first, the next thing I'm going to tell you is you must pull out your certificate of incorporation and see what it is your nonprofit is legally allowed to do. So you're going to look for that purpose clause in the certificate of incorporation. That's a document you filed with New York State, and they blessed that activity. The state has said, that is what you said you're going to do. That is what we're allowing you to do. And that's what you also told the IRS you're going to do. And you technically have your 501c3 determination around that activity. So we pull it out and we see that you're authorized to provide support programs to children and families dealing with cancer. Maybe you're working with Terry. So I say, okay, well, so you need to understand what's going on here. You can run this cafe, but you're going to be making money that's unrelated to your mission. Again, that's okay. You're going to pay taxes on it. But again, if you're paying 28%, 28 cents on the dollar, you're still up 72 cents there per dollar. All good. But I'm going to warn you, there's some risk and you have to weigh the risk because the IRS has come out and said, if you make too much unrelated business income, you're going to run the risk that we're going to come in and we're going to pull your 501c3 status. At which point my clients say to me, well, how much is too much? And that's where you get the annoying lawyer answer, which is, I can't really tell you. But that one's not a lawyer's fault. That is the fault well, I'm not going to say fault, that is a result of the IRS and the tax courts issuing a wide range of opinions and decisions that say how much is too much. In general, someplace around 20, 25% is where you start to hit the danger zone. So then I say, okay, so now let's do a little risk reward here. What's the risk? Well, if the IRS decides to come in and audit you, which is unlikely because they're understaffed, but perhaps not so unlikely because they've now automated the review process. If they take a peek and see you're at 22%, you do run that real risk they're going to yank your 501c3 status. So maybe we talk about a different way to structure it. Here, the reward's pretty good, 22% revenue, but the risk is huge. You're going to lose that 501c3 status if you just go blindly into the night. So for me, it's not there's no fixed answer to that question because it really depends on what the circumstances are. I say all the time, lawyering is an art, not a science. And you can actually ask two lawyers the same question and get two correct but very different answers. For me, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to lawyering, but risk reward, you don't file your new certificate of incorporation until the end of the year. You roll the dice with the IRS on that 501c3. That's when my left eye starts to twitch, which is the telltale sign of Pro Bono Partnership. When I announce, oh my God, my left eye is twitching, it makes me nervous. So for me, risk reward, really it's a balancing thing. And you have to think about what you possibly are giving up for what you're getting.
Thank you so much. That story, I think, will stick with all of us. That was a really great way of describing how you approach kind of counseling your clients. So let's move on to what's going on with let's hope it's the aftermath of the pandemic, sort of. Are there lingering issues that you're hearing about that could be helpful for organizations to know? I'm not even up to speed on the latest mandates or lack thereof or changes. Just give us a lay of the land of anything you think we should know.
So I'm going to start by saying, as much as we'd all like to, I don't think it is in the rear view mirror, but there are certain for today takeaways, right? You could ask me this tomorrow and it could very well be different, especially with that new strain coming out of Europe. But let's be positive. So first, we're going to start with the fact that the Hero Act is revoked. So the Hero Act, which talks about infectious disease protocols, as of March 17th, ironically on St. Patrick's Day, like, of course, that's when we should all start to loosen up our grip on things. But as of March 17th, you no longer have to have your infectious disease protocols in place. Couple of things to know about that. It doesn't mean your plan goes away. It just means you don't have to be implementing that plan right now. The other thing you should know as an employer is that it's not limited to COVID. Governor Hochul could say tomorrow, the flu is out of control, people, slap those protocols back in place. So a lot of people think Hero Act is only COVID related, and it's not. So be prepared that you may have to put those plans back into place. But for now, you're good on that. Most masking mandates have gone away except for public transportation and medical situations. Apparently in New York City, if you're Kyrie Irving, it doesn't apply to you anymore after today either, the anti-vax no mask, but no judgment on that one. And my family aren't Nets fans anyhow. But you can still require, as a private business, you can still require masks. Don't think that you can't. It's just not required anymore. So for example, Nordstrom still requires masks. Just is. Want to shop there, you slap them the mask on. One of the questions we get frequently is, can we require proof of vax or proof of vax and boosted for employment? So yes, you can. If you decide to go that route, you really should have a policy in place because you want to make sure you apply it uniformly. You can also, and this is a question we get, can we just apply it to our new or incoming employees? And the answer to that is yes, but it's not our preferred methodology for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is you're going to be treating similarly, well, not necessarily similarly situated people, but you're going to be creating different classes of workers. And that's going to create a lot of HR hubbub for you. It's really going to create problems amongst the workforce that you possibly don't need. We would recommend that you just give your employees a chance to do it, grandfather them in, give them some time, but we're not going to tell you you can't. We're just going to tell you you're going to have a lot of morale problems, and people build things up in their own heads. So once you have sort of these two classes, you begin to have an us versus them mentality. People start to, well, make up things, for lack of a better word. I mean, really, they do. And people start ascribing everything to their status, when sometimes things just happen because you stink as an employee. So it's not our preferred policy, but you can do it. If you want to do it, you should be talking to a lawyer about how to do it. A lot of times people also ask us, well, what kind of proof can we ask for? So let me just say, feel free to ask for whatever kind of proof you want, but there are consequences depending on what you choose to do. Our recommendation is you have a checklist. List everybody's name on a piece of paper and ask them to show you their proof. Whether proof is proof of 2 vaxes or vax and boost, we leave up to you. It's not mandated. You can decide whatever you want. But the reason I suggest you just have a checklist and cross off the names is because if you take a picture or if you copy the proof of the vax, you have now collected a medical record. That means you've got to put all kinds of policies in place about protecting that information, because it is private medical information. It's got to be kept confidentially, can't be in an employee file, it's got to be locked down, got to be separate. And if you blow it, it's a problem. Whereas if you just make a check mark next to a name, you're in far better shape. So those are sort of some of the highlights. If you have specific questions, reach out to your pro bono partnership lawyer, or if you're not a PBP client, probably should consider becoming one. But I think pretty much everyone here is. But if you're not, so if you're a PBP client, you've got questions, give us a call. Otherwise, reach out to the lawyer you're paying. Not that we're opposed to lawyers getting paid. And, just make sure you're dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's on this.
Great. Thank you so much, Judy. Very, very helpful to know. It's hard to keep up with the changes. I still don't know, just meandering around Astoria. Wait, am I supposed to have my mask on? I should. My children are young. I should just have it on, but then nobody else, it's just this weird. And then to put it in the context of organizations and requirements and what the best way to how to navigate sort of the proof of vaccine was really helpful to know.
And the other thing I'm going to say is some of this just comes down to common sense, like as so many things do. And as Melissa's heard me say to many a client, and so is Mindy, like I tell my kids, if you have to ask me the question, I think you already know that answer, don't you? So for me, part of it is, what population are you working with? If you're working with kids or families with people undergoing cancer treatment, then mask up. Come on, people, do the right thing. Like, think about someone else. So for me, some of it really is common sense and common courtesy.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Look after our neighbors, right? All right, let's see. So this is what we talked about at the NRH meeting a few weeks ago, and there's so much under this that I think folks on this meeting will find helpful, but the importance of good governance and the role of your board. I think it's your favorite topic.
It is one of my very favorite topics.
One of mine.
Second only to puppies. So
Yeah,
you sort of touched on my number one issue earlier when I was describing, you amend your certificate of incorporation, or you're looking at your certificate of incorporation to see what you're legally allowed to do. That purpose clause is the be all end all. There is just no way around that, people. You can only do what that purpose clause permits you to do, but you can amend it, which is good to know. So if you think so you need to look, and look, it really becomes a problem. And so here's the example. Your certificate of incorporation says you're going to do dogs and cows, or dogs and cats. Great, you're doing dogs and cats, and then you find out there's this need for cows. So like any good nonprofit, you pivot and you're now doing dogs and cats and cows. And that's great, except they're not legally authorized to do it. And that's a real concern. And a matter of fact, that's a real risk, because you've now violated the legal parameters of what you're allowed to do. And it can become a problem. It becomes a problem because if anyone ever phones in a complaint about you to the AG's office, I promise you, as the woman who used to run the AG's office, every nonprofit that gets a complaint about it, it does get investigated. And that is one of the first things they're going to look at, what your certificate of incorporation says you're allowed to do and what you're actually doing. And that's something that the AG's office, while it's very big on compliance and not penalizing entities, I can tell you, fines and penalties are hard to get out of if you've gone beyond the parameters of your purpose clause. You're going to get fined. You may even have to sign a consent decree with the AG's office. So there is a big risk on that one. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know what you're allowed to do. It's easily fixable if you're now doing cows and goats, but make sure that you amend your certificate of incorporation. The other place that this becomes a problem is a lot of our clients come in and they show us their bylaws. So their certificate of incorporation says dogs and cats. Their bylaws actually accurately reflects what they're doing. So it's dogs, cats, cows, ducks, or whatever. The certificate of incorporation is the document that controls. I don't care what you put as your mission or your goals in your bylaws, does not ever trump your certificate of incorporation. So if you're going to put a mission in your bylaws, please make sure that it tracks verbatim what's in your certificate of incorporation. Because the problem is you're going to look at your bylaws and then you're going to say, oh, it says we can do this. Doesn't matter. It's what's in your certificate of incorporation. So that's the first thing. Now, this is not to say that bylaws are not important. Bylaws are very important, very, very, very important. In fact, they're the scaffolding and the roadmap of how you're going to govern. They tell you what your board is going to do, how it's going to look, and how it's going to take action. So it's going to tell you how many board members you have. Are there term limits? What those term limits are if you have them. It talks about how many people you need at a meeting to take action, your quorum requirement. It talks about once you have quorum, what the percentage has to be to take action. Is it a simple majority? Is it 2/3? And I'm going to tell you that the law is going to say in certain circumstances, like if you're selling substantially all of your real estate, you need 2/3. Doesn't matter if your bylaws say a half, but you need to have the right information in those bylaws, but it's your roadmap. It's really a model of good governance. And I love good bylaws. The problem is I can draft you the most perfect set of bylaws and they will be perfect, I promise you. But if you're not following them, they're worthless. So the art of it is figuring out what you're doing, what you can do, and crafting the best set of bylaws for you. How do you do this? Once again, pull those bylaws out once a year, pull those certificate of incorporations out at least once a year, read them and understand what they say. And talk to a lawyer. I mean, there's a lot of language in bylaws people are going to read and say, huh, are we really doing this? Well, my guess is if you're asking, the answer is no. And then the question is, how are we going to fix it and make it work? One of the areas where we often bump into problems for our clients is their bylaws say they're a membership corporation. And everyone gets all confused around membership. So what you need to understand are there are two kinds of members in the nonprofit world. There are capital M members and lowercase m members, as I like to say. So a lowercase m member is something like this. When our kids were little, we were members of the Bronx Zoo and the Norwalk Aquarium and the Museum of Natural History. And we had so we paid dues, right? We were supporters of the Bronx Zoo and we got to park for free and we got to see the gorilla exhibit before it opened, which was totally cool. And we got a discount at that horrible gift shop, which I swear I still have like things around my house from the gift shop. And we paid and supported the zoo, but we in no way had governance authority or responsibilities. We were not voting for the board of directors of the World Wildlife Foundation. So we were lowercase m members, perfectly acceptable. And in bylaws, you often see, shall have members, shall not have members, but you need to be clear about what kind of members you're talking. Lowercase m members, or are you a capital M member? And that would be something like Vicky's organization, where it's a statewide organization and each region has a representative member with a capital M, and they get to vote for who sits on the board of directors, among other things. And that happens in these statewide organizations because they're generally advocacy groups and the members want to have a say in who's steering the organization and who's coming up with legislative policy and advocacy policy. Those are very different kinds of members. Those are capital M members, and they do control a lot of governance issues, including voting for the board of directors, approving bylaws, approving changes to certificate of incorporation. So it's really important to be clear in your bylaws if you have members and what kind of members you have. And we fix those all the time. Like if it says you have capital M members and you're certainly not running that way, again, pick up the phone, call your PVP lawyer. We can fix it with you, but you just got to do it to make sure you're doing it right. I also want to just highlight there are a couple of policies you must have by law in New York State. If you have as much as one part-time employee, you must have an anti-sexual harassment policy. You've got to implement that policy within 30 days of a new hire. And once a year, everyone has to get retrained. Honestly, New York State Department of Labor has a model policy on its website. We have a model policy. Ours tracks pretty much the states, perhaps a little more employer friendly than the states, but you really can't go wrong using the state's policy because they wrote it, but you absolutely must have that policy. There, you need a conflict of interest policy without doubt. That is a legal requirement in New York State. You're not going to like the one I give you, but I'm going to have to tell you I don't care because it's very technical in New York State what you need to do to comply. So Vicky, hand up. Let's hear it.
That's Vicky. Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry, the phrase of this of the decade, right? So Judy, this is really interesting, and just reflecting back on the membership, what you discussed, because the organization also I found it was a membership organization, similar to statewide. But is it actually a requirement that your membership vote on your board or vote? I mean, or is that dictated by other factors, whether what's in your what's in your bylaws, or I mean, how does that work?
It's what's in your bylaws. But I'm going to tell you that if you're not having your members vote, there's really no purpose to vote for your board. There's really no purpose in being a true capital M membership structure. And I flip organizations all the time, and I've written a really good cover letter. When you're asking your members to vote themselves out of existence, it's really good. And then I had the head of marketing for a really large organization work with me on it. So if there's no purpose being served by having true capital M members, you need to get rid of them because you're only messing things up, and it's going to make it harder for your actual board to govern. Gotcha. And you can call me, hopefully not till next Wednesday because I'm kind of tied up until then. But if you want to talk about how the process goes, happy to do that with you.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that. Thanks, Judy. Great information. Thank you.
Oh, and there's a couple more things about governance, like some pet peeves of mine. Your 990, your tax return that every single nonprofit has to file in some form or another. When I say has to file, I mean must file. Failure to file 3 years in a row, doesn't matter what reason, under God's green little earth. If you don't file it for 3 years in a row, the IRS is automatically revoking your 501c3 status. Again, automatically. It's going to happen like that. Don't not file. And also, another little pet peeve of mine, minutes. Just need to talk about minutes for a moment. So minutes are a legal document that reflects what happened at your board meeting. It is not a transcript. Not a transcript at all. What it is just reflects the deliberations and the actions that are taken by your board. They are not the place to record everything everybody said. The goal at a board meeting is to have an open, freewheeling, frank discussion. If your minutes attribute every sentence to everybody who said it, you are going to quash some really good dialogue. That is the antithesis of what you want happening at your board meeting. You want to reflect, here's the topic, here were the pros and cons, here's who made the motion to approve it, here's who seconded it, and here's what the final vote was. That also means no adjectives, no adverbs, no opinions of the minute taker. We don't care about opinions. I mean, we care, but we don't care about them in the minutes whatsoever. Nor do we need minutia. I have actually gotten calls from an IRS auditor because when I was doing an application to the IRS, we had to submit the minutes at which these documents were all approved. And there was a discussion about the flavor of scones that were served and which were better. The first question I got asked by the man calling me from Oklahoma, from the IRS's office was, which flavor was better? Okay, first of all, I wasn't at the meeting. And second of all, do you really want to, you just don't need that crap, people. So clean up those minutes. The other really important thing about minutes is they are worth nothing until they're adopted, right? You can take the minutes, but if you don't adopt the minutes, they are useless. So within a week, hopefully after the board meeting, whoever took the minutes is going to send them out to everybody who's going to carefully review them to make sure they accurately reflect what transpired. If there are any changes, you need to let the secretary know. And then at the next board meeting, you're going to vote to approve them. Failure to approve them means they are nothing. They don't exist legally. Okay, Vicki, you did have your coffee this morning.
And then Joe, go ahead, Vicki.
This is so stimulating. I just love not-for-profit management and law and whatever. But regarding board meetings, and this was something that I squashed and it was brought up years ago, recording a board meeting. What is your advice? I mean, as an attorney relevant to that?
I would not like that. I am not a fan of transcribing everybody's every utterance. Again, the only thing you want are those minutes which reflect the discussion and the action. You just don't want it. You want a single standalone document. But I will say, and Mindy will be proud of me, on Tuesday, May 17th, I know that because it's the day before I head to graduation for my son. On Tuesday, May 17th, we are doing, I can't remember its catchy title that Mindy gave us, but it's like Nonprofit 101, how to build a better board and how to run a more effective meeting. Because I really hate sloppy board meetings, because I really don't like meetings, because I think they take up way too much time. So it's really good. It's like an hour and a half. I don't remember. We talk about building your better board, size, structure, term limits, DEI, because that is a real issue for me. And the intersect of diversity, equity, and inclusion and fiduciary duty of care. It's a biggie for me. And then we talk about how to really run a better meeting and how to take some good minutes. And I give lots of cheat sheets out with that one. So May 17th, I think we charge $30, Mindy? Mindy is saying yes, it's $30 per person.
Yeah, it's 30. And I'm sorry, I'm not finding it on our website at the moment, so I need to look into that. But if it'll be there soon.
It's May 17th.
Mindy, share it with me if you can when you have a chance so that we can circulate it to the entire roundtable group, okay?
You got it, Christine.
And Joe, what about you? What's your question there?
So we had this is a real world situation. So obviously I know.
Wait, don't say anything that's like breaching confidentiality or that you wouldn't want to show up in a deposition someday.
No, we've already done everything we needed to do. This is like retrospect if it happens again. So evidently the IRS tagged us as being late on filing. We have proof because we sent everything certified. We have signatures, everything else. But we still were apparently said that we were late and assessed a fine. We wrote a letter back. We attached all of our supporting documentations. And just on the off chance, because I couldn't get anybody on the phone, I sent the penalty check just so whatever, because I never want to mess with the IRS. And of course, they cashed the check, even though we're 100% in the right. But my question is, like, is there a better way of like trying to navigate a situation? Like, we knew 1000% that we filed on time. We're not late at all. We provided the documents. But they still.
A couple things. Talk to Ken Serini, because this is more accounting than legal. But I will tell you that we use the tax advocate's office frequently to address issues with the IRS. They're pretty good. They're pretty responsive. I mean, I will tell you the IRS, the tax exempt office is understaffed by about 30% right now. And the IRS put out a statement a couple of weeks ago that they're not even dinging people anymore for not having paid everything they're supposed to because they can't even get the letters out to people telling them they owe money. So I'm going to say it's a hot mess at the IRS right now.
I wish I could stop payment on that check now, but.
Talk to Ken or try the tax advocate office. If you go, just Google tax advocate office. I can't remember the address or the phone number in New York, but they've been very helpful for me when I needed to deal with them on behalf of my clients.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess, oh, and D&O insurance, which sometimes my clients say to me, should we have it? And I kind of say, like, why would you not? Like, how much insurance you need, that's a Tommy issue, not a Judy issue. But I will say, yes, every board should have directors and officers insurance. Really, every board should have general liability insurance. If you have employees, you should have employee protection liability insurance. How much you need depends on what your organization does and the populations with which you work. If you're giving grants out but not having any human contact, you probably need less than if you're working with an at-risk population, the elderly, if you're one of my like age-in-place clients. Well, yeah, if you're driving senior citizens around or sending people into their homes, yeah, you're going to need more insurance. Or if you're working with kids or food service, right? So you just have to use a little common sense and you have to know enough to know you need to talk to a professional, like a Tommy. It's not a Judy issue.
But Judy, let me ask a follow-up for that. So D&O insurance is not required, it's just strongly recommended, because I think a lot of board members, when we're considering what boards to join, we're looking for that to make sure that we're not putting our necks on the line should something,
Well, look,
go wrong.
I tell my clients, you should, in your bylaws, you should say shall for D&O and may for indemnification. But it's not required under the law, but I certainly would not sit on a board that didn't have D&O insurance. And I would ask how much D&O insurance before I sat on that board. Matter of fact, one of the boards I sat on, we doubled the amount of D&O insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure you're a very sought after board member. Yeah. What free time do you have, Judy, for all of the organizations?
Well, I actually don't sit on any boards, and I actually stepped off a couple because I was on the grants committee for a nonprofit that addressed food insecurity in Southern Westchester. But given that half the people they contemplated funding were my actual clients, it really wasn't appropriate for me to sit on that committee anymore. So now I just advise from this end and I write checks. My husband keeps pointing out, you know, we're writing a lot more checks ever since you took this huge pay cut, honey, which is true.
That makes sense.
I've literally gone to board meetings and handed my clients checks where they're looking at me like, okay, normally we write a check to the lawyer. She doesn't come in and hand us a check, but.
All right, well, before we get back to more policies that we should all know about, Vicky, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I can't help it. This is like.
No, we love this. Keep the
So-
conversation going.
So now D&O insurance, I also agree with you. I would never sit on a board or run an organization that didn't have D&O and liability insurance. However, and I know of somebody who really got screwed because and potentially lost their house and everything else because they were named as a trustee in the organization. It was a long story. So what happens? You're on ABC not-for-profit. They don't have D&O or liability, and then somebody launches some kind of action against you, and now here you are hat flapping out in the wind. What are your what happens from that point?
You're going to get a lawyer. It's going to cost you a lot of money.
Right.
You're going to hope that no one did anything that was grossly negligent. You're pretty much protected if it was negligence, but even having to defend that lawsuit is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Whereas if there's D&O, the carrier is going to give you a lawyer to defend you.
Yeah, I was working with a not-for-profit that didn't have D&O, and I insisted. And really, it was not an easy get for them to do it. They finally did because I was so adamant about it. And I wasn't on the board of directors, but I said to them, it was a consulting thing. I said to them, you need D&O insurance, or so you're going to be, personally liable for who knows what in this crazy world. So anyway.
Mhm.
Thank you.
The first thing that we did when we started 9 years ago, actually, I think it was the second board meeting, we took out both policies, and the founding board members went into our own pockets in order to be able to pay the first premiums so that we were starting off on the right track.
Mm. Very good. Yep, so important. All right, let's shift gears to fundraising. So when we had Melissa on, we learned some interesting things about inadvertent restrictions, the different ways that funds can be categorized, or things like, oh, let's just have a little, we'll draw a name out of a hat at one of our events. Is that considered a different type of fundraising? So what should we know and keep in mind when we're taking in funds and considering having different events?
Sure. So many things. And actually, our colleague Allie just did a great workshop yesterday on fundraising. Mindy, I'm going to put you on the spot. Did we record that?
Yeah, I think we did record it. So the
Okay,
recording
so-
will be on, well, actually I think that was a paid one, Judy. So the recording would only go to the people who attended the.
Oh, okay. So you can still call
Yeah.
us and ask us questions. But
Yeah.
anyhow, so I'm going to be lying if I told you that the law has caught up with the internet. 100% has not. And that's where many of the problems with fundraising come in. So all the state attorney generals got together in 2001, like think about that, 2001, like more than 20 years ago in Charleston, and came up with a set of principles, oh so cleverly named the Charleston principles, because they didn't have Mindy to come up with a more catchy name for them. And those sort of talked about what were we going to do about this thing called the internet, because no one really knew. And so here's the thing, like no one's just fundraising in their neighborhood anymore, right? Everyone's using the internet, and that raises questions about where do you have to register? Registration questions, always a big issue. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is we have a really good 50 state sort of overall, take a look at it, state by state resource on our website. If you go to the Learning Center part of our website and click on articles and then search under fundraising, you'll see this 50 statewide assessment. It's actually a really nuanced, subtle question, but suffice it to say for now, for this discussion, you have to have enough touches with the state for the court and whatever regulatory agency oversees it to have jurisdiction over you. Which of course begs the question, what is enough touching? So you get one check from Montana, you really don't have enough context. You have a whole bunch of grandmas and grandpas who are snowbirds in Florida and everyone's sending checks for everyone's bar and bat mitzvah projects. You might have a touching problem with Florida because you got a lot of checks coming out of there. So some of it is you kind of got to go with your gut. But again, 1 or 2 states have quantified it in terms of dollar amounts and number of contributions. Most of them have not. What I would say is, what I tell my clients is, if you're concerned, use a pie chart and do 2 pie charts. And that's sort of going to guide your analysis. Do 1 pie chart that looks at, let's say you got $100 total, break it down and see what states by dollars, right? You got $2 from here, $7 from there. You're going to get a picture of where your touches are. Also, you can do it by number of donations from place to place. Now, what is a touch is also pretty broad, and we really can't get into that here. But I will say, you send a newsletter, just so you should know, even electronically, and in that newsletter it says, and don't forget to donate to, Pro Bono Partnership. That's a touch, that's a solicitation. So please be wary of that. You kind of got to go out and actually make that contact. So that's sort of Internet 101. It's just a mess, and you got to talk to your PPP lawyer. As Christine and Melissa were saying, there's the whole inadvertent, oops, how do we take the money? How is it classified? So there are strings to if there are strings to how the donation came in, then you need to be wary. So let's say that you own your own building and your roof is starting to leak, and some wonderful, lovely donor gives you $15,000 to repair the roof, and it only cost you $12,000. What about that extra $3,000? Well, if they only gave it to you to do the roof, you can't use the $3,000 for anything else unless you go back to that donor and get permission. So you want to be careful about the instrument or how you take the money. Now contrast that with, and this is even more problematic, you have a capital campaign to raise money for the roof. You raise your $15,000, it only costs $12,000. How the heck are you going back to everybody for that $3,000? Do you divide it up? Is it pro rata? Like, big pain in the neck. So you really want to be careful about the language you use around solicitation. So funds that come in from a donor with very specific terms are restricted funds. That is to be contrasted with board restricted funds, which is an entirely different creature. So let's say the board has this money and they're sitting on money, yay, money for nonprofits. And the board says, we're going to designate $15,000 for a capital, fund, and we're only going to use it for capital contributions. That's all very good and nice, but honestly, as a nonprofit lawyer, or even if Ken Zerini were here and another accountant, they would all say, who gives a crap? Like, board designated, like restricted funds is meaningless. It is not a true restriction. The board can break it like that. They can use that $15,000 if they want to do like hop on pogo stick day. Who cares? It's not truly restricted funds. Doesn't matter how you booked it. If you book it on your 990 is restricted, but it's board restricted, it's not. So it's really why it's important to use a really good accountant who knows nonprofit taxes, but also you need to really understand what it is you're restricting. So board restricted, it's a nothing. Because nothing is easy in New York State. We're really, 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 really regulated in New York State, the most regulated state anywhere for nonprofits. California coming up close with number 2, but New York still wins. Professional fundraisers. Now, most of you are going to say to me, oh, we don't need to talk about this, Judy. We don't use a professional fundraiser. We're a tiny little nonprofit. I'm going to say, not so fast. I'm going to tell you, not so right. So what you need to know is the term professional fundraiser, defined term in New York State. It's in the executive law. You're not going to find it in the nonprofit law because that would, again, be too easy. But a professional fundraiser is someone, and this is actually from the definition, it's any person who directly or indirectly for compensation or other consideration plans, manages, conducts, carries on, or assists in connection with a charitable solicitation. So you're probably still saying, why do I care, Judy? And I'm going to say, because if you're using an event planner, you care, because event planners pretty much fall within the definition of professional fundraiser. And that's going to set off a whole bunch of other responsibilities, not the least of which is your professional fundraiser must be registered with the Attorney General, because if he or she is not registered, they're going to get fined and you're going to get fined. The nonprofit will get fined for using a professional fundraiser that is not registered with the Attorney General. Additionally, if you're using a professional fundraiser, there needs to be a very specific form of contract with some very specific terms, and it has to be submitted to the New York State Attorney General's office, which has 15 days to review it and lodge any objections.
Where does this risk fall in that big scheme of risk in terms of this fundraising registration?
It's not such a big risk, but it's one of those ones where the AG does look at this. You're going to have to report it on your Form Char 500, so you're going to flag it for the AG. They do keep an eye on it, I don't think it's huge. The dollar fine's not gigantic. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's one of those situations. Do you really want the AG's nose under your tent? Not
No.
so much.
Yeah, okay.
And our fundraiser is registered at PVP
Of
for our
course.
gala, which is in September, the 25th anniversary. Support us. Yeah, Joe?
I'm actually going to ask the same question that Amy just put in the chat, just as a clarification, because I,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
myself, whatever, I spend so much time planning.
Yep,
managing
no,
our-
you're good.
Okay.
Apply outside. Staff doesn't count, nor do grant writers.
Great
Okay.
question,
Good
Amy.
question. Really good question. Sorry about that. Did not mean to raise people's heart rates before 10. But I also want to contrast that with a commercial co-venture, which is a different creature. Commercial co-ventures also get reported to the Attorney General on your Form Char 500, but you don't have to send the contract to the AG's office, nor do you actually even technically need a contract. But I'm going to tell you, you should have one. But a commercial co-venture is when Joe's Deli says, oh, we're going to make April ABC Nonprofit Month, and we're going to give 10% of our profits to ABC Nonprofit. And I say, great, because as I've already said, big fan of money for my nonprofits, but there are things you should be thinking about if you do this commercial co-venture, not the least of which is you want to paper it so you understand the terms. And it's not a very complex piece of paper. It's an easy contract. I knock them out all the time for my clients. You can even say agreement if it makes people nervous. But what it applies to, oh, yes, Mindy, why are you saying Judy? Oh, never mind.
I just accidentally hit send.
okay.
I'm going to send everyone the link to the webinar you mentioned.
Okay, so commercial co-venture, you want to actually hammer out some of these terms. So I just said the deli is going to make 10% of profit. Well, is that net profit or gross profit? Is there a floor on that? Is there a ceiling or a cap on that? And equally important, or perhaps more important, is how are you going to protect your intellectual property, your good name? You want to have something in writing that says you get to approve how they're using your name, right? You don't want them running wild with it. So it's a pretty easy contract. It's not scary. It's written for regular people, not annoying lawyers. But I think it's really important to have one of those agreements and to understand. And just to define commercial co-venture, it's when you enter into an agreement with a for-profit business that regularly provides the good or service. So Bob's Deli, yes. The fire department that sells t-shirts one weekend and gives you the profit, no, they're not regularly engaged in that. So that's one of the differences. Oh, and then,
Oh, sorry.
Yep, go Amy.
One question. So going back to the professional fundraiser, if you are working with like consultant and an event planner, but they're not helping with the sponsorship or selling anything, they're just like my liaison with the golf club that we're working with, how does that?
Are you a PPP client? Well, I wouldn't give you legal advice over this call anyhow.
But
So,
if they're not physically raising money, they're just.
well, but the question is, are they, right, assisting in connection with your solicitation? It's pretty broad. The AG is going to want to go broad on that. I got to tell you.
Okay. No, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and finally, like, again, nothing is easy in New York State. So although the AG oversees all the nonprofit activity, gaming is overseen by the New York State Gaming Commission, the same people who bring you the lottery and horse racing. So, and you're under the New York State gaming laws and regulations, raffles, bingo nights, all that comes under New York State Gaming Commission. The rules are actually both complex, but all laid out on the website there. But there are things you probably don't know that you should. Can't take a credit card yet for payment for raffle tickets. Can't be under the age of 18 to sell a raffle ticket. So all those raffles by high school sports teams, technically illegal. I used to buy the raffle tickets also, but then I would have this moral dilemma because I knew better. So I'd put them in my friends' names and just say, moral obligation here, give the money back to PVP if you win, but I can't have my name on it. Splitting that hair down the middle. So again, risk reward. I have never heard from a client that they ran a raffle and got tagged by the Gaming Commission. I don't know how high the risk reward is. I also don't know what the punishment would be coming from Gaming Commission. Like, this is one, we've never really discovered it. Normally when I show my clients all the regs, they sort of roll their eyes at me and I'm very confident they ignore me on a regular basis on this. But again, risk reward, I have had clients that we've done a lot of research and spoken to the Gaming Commission about things because they had a jeweler donate a $50,000 piece of jewelry and the raffle was like $250 each and it got a lot of press. That we made sure they were registered and they did everything right, because there you're a little more high profile, so the risk was higher. You're going to offer, like, raffle off a $250 like Italian food basket, which I'm all for, but the risk on that one, probably much less.
This is so great, Judy. Thank you. Since we're in the last 10 minutes or so, I just want to make sure if anyone has a question, raise your hand or put it in the chat. Frank. Up, you're muted.
So Judy, two questions. One is, could you share with the group what you have for breakfast? Because I'd like to have your energy. And
I haven't had breakfast yet, and I only drink decaffeinated coffee. This is just me.
That's a miracle. I mean, and second question is, how would you like to join the board of Holy Cross High School? I'm vice chairman, and I would like to have you join our board.
Well, I don't think so, but I'm always happy to be a resource. And I actually taught mock trial at a Catholic boys high school. Which,
Well, in the interest of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think you'd be a great addition to our board.
Thank you. And let me tell you, I also taught con law at that same Catholic boys high school. So I did not know, but they listen in on the classes. And oh, let me just say, I ran my lesson plan for my first one by the vice principal. Apparently, liberal Jewish girl feelings on like abortion and same-sex marriage does not really fly at a Catholic high school.
Well,
That was a learning experience.
In my past life, I had a Jewish accountant that taught accounting at St. John's University, and he said he was hedging his bets on the path of salvation.
Well, Tommy and I were discussing our faith in the universe earlier. And if you know me from PPP or any of my clients, you know I'm a big fan of the universe. What's up, Joe? What's your question?
Can you go back to what you cut out for a minute on my end? We can't take money from credit cards for raffle tickets?
Not yet. The law's been passed, but the regs aren't out, so you're not allowed to do it technically.
Technically.
Oh, boy.
No, like I said, my clients ignore me all the time on that one. Melissa, I'm pretty sure your clients ignored you all the time on that one also.
Don't worry, Joe. My takeaway with any conversation with lawyers is we are all very good people, and most of us are breaking many laws unknowingly, and we are doing the best that we can and helping a lot of people.
Yes, but the only problem with that, and I agree 100%, is that good people still don't look good in striped pajamas and metal bracelets if it ever came to that. So.
Well, I've done a little white collar defense work too. Let me tell you, people think, oh, you're staying in your house, it's not such a big deal. No, I actually spent a lot of time in max security prisons also. You really don't want to go there.
Aye.
Don't scare Joe too much. He's just raising money for something. He's trying to do the right thing. Joe, I'm sure you can figure that out. Another way to run your raffle.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Now you know.
Anyone else?
Although, is there, not to split hairs, is there a difference between a credit card and a debit card? Because I mean, technically there is.
Probably under the law, but I would have to go research that. My gut is it's probably different, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and read the legislative history, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
So what about Venmo or Cash App and those things?
Good question.
Okay. Again, the law not caught up with reality. And actually, gaming commissions had this stuff out there for years, but then COVID, it's all like everything is on hold because of COVID. It's just backed up.
Yeah.
And then we'll find out one day when they do catch up that we'll have to return all the money because they've made a retroactive law. And
I will say about Venmo now, the dollar figure is $600, people. So like all those babysitters who are making money via Venmo, they're supposed to be reporting that income. Just saying.
Yeah, don't remind
Okay.
me. Okay, so let's see. I have a question if nobody else has their hand up right now. Okay, my question is, I heard recently that every nonprofit, and we actually put this in our newsletter the other day, and I hope I took someone's word for it, which, again, I'm not a lawyer, should every nonprofit have a written information destruction policy? Does that apply to every nonprofit or only certain size?
Well, it's not a should as in legally required by law, but yeah, having a document retention policy is a really important tool, more for telling you when you can get rid of stuff. And as someone who I said spent the vast bulk of her career, probably like 22 out of my 30 plus years in a federal courtroom, the point of the document retention program is that it tells you when to get rid of things. So then when you get subpoenaed in the litigation, you can honestly say, we don't have it. Our policy is we shred it, we destroy it or whatever. So it's a really good tool. Plus, it's just better for good management, right? Like you don't need a lot of extra crap. Some stuff you have to keep forever, employee records. Some stuff, you only keep for 3 years because the statute of limitations in New York is 3 years. So if you're not going to need it for a lawsuit, who cares? Out it goes.
And then others in terms of whistleblower and those sort of policies.
Okay, so whistleblower policy, I'm going to caveat this because New York State changed this law in the Department of Labor for whistleblower requirements, and I haven't meshed the two yet, but you do need a whistleblower policy in New York. You're required to have it under the not-for-profit corporation law if you have 20 or more employees and annual revenue of $1 million. Other than that, you don't have to. But now there's this push, you need to have a reporting mechanism anyhow. So pretty much everyone's going to have a whistleblower policy.
Well, then here's for everybody listening and for those who listen to this later, working with PBP, and we have a client now that just started working with you all. This is just such a wonderful resource, right? Because who is going to know all of these policies to have in place? But if you work with PBP over the course of time, Judy or one of her colleagues will make sure that you have these documents on file. You're more aware. It's just such a great educational resource and compliance support to have. So Judy, did you want to add anything that we didn't cover? I know we didn't talk about intellectual property.
Oh, intellectual property. Here's my one biggie for intellectual property. A couple of things, people. If you slap the picture on your website and say, by Ansel Adams, doesn't matter. You're still violating Ansel Adams copyright. Attribution does not solve the problem. You need to have a release. You're going to get dinged. You're going to get a letter. They're going to tell you they want money. So attribution, not enough. Please remember that. And please remember, just because you say, oh, we're using this for educational purposes, the fair use exception, it's all good. Not necessarily. Please remember that. We actually have a webinar on demand on in our learning center on that topic. Copywriting easy. It's fairly cheap. You file it with the Federal Copyright Office. You don't necessarily need to do it. You have an inherent common law copyright protection over your intellectual property. The other thing you should keep in mind, I know we're plowing through this, is you need to make sure you own it if you're going to be using it, right? So if you have a volunteer create something for you, you want an assignment to make sure it really belongs to the nonprofit, because otherwise it doesn't. So please remember that.
Vicky, I see your hand.
Ansel Adams died in 1984.
Yeah, and yet his estate still really vibrant.
On it.
Judy, can you just repeat what you said in terms of the statute of limitations for documents? I mean, it's 3 years that you have to.
No, not 3 years. That was an example. Sorry. So some things in New York State, you only have 3 years to sue on. Other things, there's a 6-year statute of limitations. So based on what the statute of limitations is for that particular kind of document, like what that document would support in terms of a lawsuit, some things you can get rid of 3 years, some things 6 years, tax returns 7 years, employee documents forever. But based on when someone could sue, if someone can only sue on this kind of thing for 3 years, you don't need to keep the document for 7. You only need it for 3.
Okay. And one other question relevant to not-for-profits. If they're doing programs and they have either a staff member or somebody that are on webinars, do they have to get releases for things that if they're included in a webinar program and stuff like that? Are releases necessary?
I'm not 100% sure what you're getting at.
Okay,
I mean, we always, like if someone's doing the webinar and creating the content, then yes, you would want to release so that it belongs to the nonprofit.
Okay, but so if they don't get a release from people who are commenting, contributing, participating, are they?
Ours, like when we have people sign up, part of the sign up is they're consenting to us using their comments, their content, their image, whatever. You want some kind of global release on that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and just please, I hate to do this, but I'm going to I have 5 more minutes and then I actually have a call that I have to get ready for. So we have 5 minutes, but I do want to really encourage you all to go to, I think it's info@probonopartner.org and ask to sign up for all our legal alerts and a list of our webinars, because you don't have to be a PBP client to participate in those. And it's a really wonderful resource. We let our nonprofits know about changes in the law or things they should know about. And the webinars are wonderful. Like I said, Allie, my colleague, did one on fundraising yesterday. My colleague Kent is doing one on bylaws in April. I'm doing the one on boards and board development in May. We tend to do them every month, although we take July and August off. So those are really good resources that you should be taking advantage of. We also have a resource line, so anyone can call in with any general nonprofit question and get some general information. That's 5 days a week, 9 to 5.
Amazing.
I think that's it. You have my contact information, and this has been great. I really, really, really appreciate the invitation, Christine and Tommy.
Yeah.
Tommy, I hope you let me come on your podcast. I think it would be lots of fun.
Tommy will be calling you tomorrow morning or tonight, Judy, for that. Thank you so, so much. Tommy always tries to actually have us end by 9:55 because everybody's rushing to their next fun Zoom encounter. So Judy, thank you. Oh my goodness, we covered
My pleasure.
what our normal sessions cover because of the pace, and I think we all loved it. So we really appreciate your time. All right, everybody.
Anytime.
Have
Thanks
a
so
good-
much. Thanks for everything you all
everybody.
do.
Thank you.
Really.
Fabulous.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.